start recording this section on the reporting the scope of work financials. I'm going to turn over to you, Courtney, and introduce you and Tara, and also I'll give you some screen sharing ability here.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Let's see here. Let me get out of the funkiness here. Hide presenter view. And all right, I got to get to the correct screen. I need to be over here. No, okay, can you, let's see, let's try this. All right, stop sharing. Let me try that again. Share screen. All right, now we are up and functioning on this afternoon. Well, I hope that you guys are all doing well, and nice to quote unquote see your names, and wish we were all together doing in-person training these days. Someday again, someday. So this is the take 2 of giving districts some helpful hints on reporting capacity grants. Before I turn it over to Tara, who's going to do the majority of the presentation, there's a couple high-level talking points I just wanted to touch on. For those of you that have been around and working for districts for a while, you'll know that things have changed kind of slowly over time. And to put it in context, a lot of these changes really started to happen when Measure 76 passed and OWEB became a permanent state agency, and we had the permanent dedication of Measure 76 lottery funds, 7.5% of which come to OWEB. And with that change, OWEB could no longer give funding to other state agencies. And so we started being the grantor of the district capacity grants and have really worked with ODA really early on in the process for consistency and not to rock the boat, per se, and make too many changes all at once to how the districts were seeing their funds come to you. But over time, we have worked hard to bring the district capacity grants in alignment with the rest of OWEB's granting programs and in alignment with council capacity grants in what the grant agreements look like, having districts follow the same budget categories as OWEB, and now this biennium having grant districts use our request for release of funds form as well as the expense tracking sheet with a few modifications for district reporting. So as we've been working through this biennium, one of the commitments OWEB also made to ODA at the beginning of this biennium is that we would pay districts each quarter as those payment requests were submitted, regardless of whether there were questions that we needed to work through on those expense tracking sheets and requests for release of funds forms. And so Tara and I have worked with Sandy and Eric and many of you throughout this biennium to clarify questions on expense tracking forms, correct errors. And so this training, these 10 tips and tricks are really about the most common errors and challenges we've seen and helping all of you get it right the first time and then working and thinking towards next biennium and trying to reduce the number of mistakes and errors. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tara. Really encourage you guys, if you have questions or want clarification on anything, either speak up or put something in the chat box. We'll be monitoring that and do our best. And if for some reason we don't get your question answered, please reach out to Sandy, Tara, or I anytime, and we'll be happy to follow up with you. So with that, I'm turning it over to you, Tara.
Hello, everybody. Before we move on, I wanted to check in. I see a lot of the same names as the presentation yesterday, and I'm wanting to find out if y'all could use like the little chat box, if there's something in particular I need to go over again that would warrant your return, or if you guys are just like, no, listening to Tara speak is such a pleasure that we couldn't restrain ourselves from coming again. So like I said, if you guys can use the chat box and tell me if I need to cover something either differently or more thoroughly or some variation on that, I would greatly appreciate it, because this presentation is really for you guys, and helping you guys do stuff. So with that, as I don't see any little chat box things coming up, I'm just going to assume that you guys are just drawn to my warm and friendly tone, and it's just all you can do to stay away. All right, Miss Courtney, if you can move us forward, please. Okay, this isn't even a trick. This is a beg. I am begging you guys to please, please, please read our Go Big document, which stands for Guidance on Budgeting and Grants. There are lots of helpful hints and examples. I am aware that this is pretty boring and dry, and the document is pretty boring and dry, but we've really done our best to make it as easy as possible to go through. Courtney, if you could move forward one screen.
And I disagree that it's boring and dry. It's one of the only 2 documents that I have printed out on my home desk. OWEB strategic plan and our Go Big document are the 2 documents I have printed out.
Okay.
And Tara, they're just back for more because they figure they might have missed something and they want to be good students. So.
Oh, well, wow, they get like A+. I'll have to figure out a way to send digital chocolate or something.
Digital gold stars.
There we go, gold stars. So this is an example. I mean, this is just a page grab from one of the pages in Go Big. We have the color, we have a little bit of headlines, we have screenshots. So it is, like I said, it is what it is, but it's worth spending 15 minutes going over it sometime when you need to go to sleep or something. Courtney, can you move us forward? You can find Go Big on our website and on the front page. If you click on payments and budget, you can see that over on the side, guidance documents and links. The very first one is Go Big. And then also, if you just can't get enough learning, you could also peruse our videos. We have a whole page of videos. I believe there are 18 at this point. And we are working on some more, and they cover such scintillating topics as how to do a budget amendment, how to fill out a request for funds, and we have even done a really nice set of videos on final reporting, photo monitoring, and post-grant reporting, which they have pretty pictures in them, so I enjoyed them a lot. Courtney, you can move us forward. All right, so to start the true presentation, tip number 1, always remember that actual costs rule. OWEB can only reimburse you for actual expenses. So if you are estimating how much things cost, or it is something that showed up, you in your budget, you estimated that person A would cost so much an hour, we need you when you're turning around and asking for reimbursement, we need you to go with actual costs. We are not asking you to send us back up with these capacity grants. We're just asking you to do the tracking sheet. But please be advised that there needs to be backup for every cost, someplace in your office. Okay. Tip number 2, please use our tracking form. Our tracking form is extremely exciting. It is a spreadsheet, woohoo, everybody likes it. And we'll go into why it's fun to use in just a minute. If you can't use our tracking sheet, please just send us an accounting report. It makes it more difficult when we get people who have created their own tracking forms, or they have modified our form to, you know, to be different than everybody else's. I run some reports that show spending variations, and I try to convince Courtney to allow certain things sometimes, and that's why I kind of want everything the same, just so I can torment and abuse Courtney on a regular basis. Courtney, move forward, please. So this is our form. It is so very exciting. Woohoo. Courtney, can you push the button so the little arrow appears? So as you can see, it's basically like our tracking form, but it has a column for indicating whether it's a scope of work or director's office expense. And then it is missing indirect costs and post-grant costs, because in capacity grants, you don't have to worry about those categories. Courtney? And as a reminder, you know, Excel sheets are very compatible with accounting programs. Most accounting programs allow an export into Excel. Courtney, can you push one button? So this is like what a profit and loss would look like. And then, Courtney, one more push, there we go. And then you can see that if you exported that into Excel, you could very easily push it into our tracking document. And it would, you know, pretty easy there. So tip number 3, good timing, Courtney, go with your original instincts. I'm going to pause for breath. I saw a couple of chats that basically indicated that I'm hilarious. Yes, Courtney knows. And that they were just making sure that they didn't miss anything from yesterday. Does anybody have any questions about tips 1 and 2? Because I'm going to assume that you don't. All right, I don't see any, so we'll move forward. Talking about the tracking sheet, we don't require that you send the receipts. However, we do want to see what you're spending the money on, which is why reporting the vendor and reporting what you are purchasing is really important on the tracking sheet. The memo field really should be used to describe the purpose. So for example, when you go down to Home Depot and you purchase, what would they purchase at Home Depot? Well, that was a bad example. When you go into Office Depot and you purchase, you know, 14 reams of paper and 3 printing cartridges and a chocolate bar, while I would discourage including the chocolate bar as a reimbursable expense, I would basically include everything else and just write in the side there, you know, basic office supplies. Courtney, can you move forward, please? So on my screen, oh.
Did I mess something up?
I asked you to move forward.
Okay.
Aha, there we go.
I had an interruption from a child and I thought I muted and instead I turned off my screen. So I apologize for disrupting everyone.
No problem. So when you're putting things on the tracking sheet, please don't lump costs. So don't just send us something that says I spent X on rent for the whole year. If you're paying your year of rent, you know, say that you paid Bugs Bunny landlord 2020 rent, okay, and that way we know, oh, okay, you know, they're paying the rent. Don't just put rent, because then we start to wonder, well, what is it for, and what is the period, and what does it cover, and who are they paying, and all sorts of fun things. Okay. You know, and again, if you don't write something like Amazon and let us wonder about what you're purchasing at Amazon. Again, we're reviewing these and with the goal of making sure that everything is an eligible expense. You know, let us know if you're buying office supplies or a computer or safety equipment or, you know, whatever in general thing that you're buying. All right, I think that I'm going to move forward from there.
Well, I'll just add for what Tara was saying here. Our goal is to get to yes. So when you can provide us information in the memo field, it really helps us understand what we're paying for. The other thing that I wanted to say, and then I was disrupted by a 12-year-old, is that, you know, we also need to know the date of purchases, especially because we can only pay for purchases within the grant window. So we can't pay for things that you bought before the grant started or after the grant ended. And so that's another reason why the date is really, really important within these grants. So now I will move forward. There you go.
Okay. So more on this topic. One of the things that I see in our reports is somebody just saying banner card by buying office supplies or meeting expenses. So basically what they're saying is they went somewhere, they used their Visa card to buy something. Okay. A little more information would have been extremely helpful in this case. And again, they're purchasing an ad, I guess, from the Herald. And from what I hear from you guys, that is a sometimes that is a requirement to advertise your annual meeting. Sometimes it's something else. So using the memo field there to explain what that ad was for would have been really helpful. Courtney? This is a much better example. Courtney, this is one where you get to push an extra button. As you can see, you know, on the vendor name, it shows, you know, that they bought from Adobe, Inuit, RAI, you know, we can see all the vendors. And then over in the invoice or the memo field part, you can see, oh, it was rent. Oh, it was a subscription. Oh, it was the electric bill. And we go, oh, okay. And we just move on with our merry little lives. All right, next. All right, so I'll take another deep breath here. Everybody feeling confident? All right, I can tell that you're all just riveted to the screen. All right, tip number 4, mistakes are easy. What we really want to do with the tracking sheet is have you put, you know, a quarter of payments, 1 quarter of payments, and then simply add the 2nd quarter of payments, and then add the 3rd quarter of payments, and so on and so forth. If you make a mistake, for example, we had a global pandemic last year. I'm sure that you've heard about this. Because of it, Connect was canceled, all right? If something like that happens, don't just remove Connect. Write in there that, you know, Connect minus, you know, show that you made the entry and then you pulled it back, all right? Now, I'm going to pause because Arlise wrote in here, Adobe subscription is in supplies and materials. I always put it in other. I am not insistent about this being incorrect, about it being, sometimes I put it in other, sometimes I put it in materials and supplies. It depends on how carefully I'm looking at it. Either one is correct. We prefer to have software and subscriptions and things like that go in the other category, but it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world if they end up in materials and supplies and things like that. And Cindy Anderson says, bye everybody, because she has to go do other fun things. Arlise, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right, cool. She wrote, thanks. All right. So Courtney, you can move forward again, please. Tip number 5, reporting your staff. In general, this is an area where people do pretty well, but there are definitely some things that make me worried with some of our grantees. I hope that you guys all know that you need to be keeping a timesheet for everybody, okay? And, you know, I hope that you guys are using the memo field to note how many hours are being worked for your grant. And then as a reminder, workers' comp should be reported in salary, wages, and benefits, not in the other category with other insurance. I'm seeing a lot of people report it as insurance, and it is insurance, but it's part of the salary and wages benefits pool. Courtney, can you move forward? Timesheets don't have to be hard. All we really want to see, and I shouldn't say we, OWEB doesn't really look at timesheets, but if you're ever audited by somebody like, you know, the federal government or some other, you know, entity like that, all we want to do is we want to see how many hours were worked in a day, what grants were worked on, and that, you know, signature, there was a signature by both the employee and the supervisor. So everybody agreed to everything and life is good. I mean, that's really what we want to see. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. I know a lot of people use, you know, timesheet programs now, and that's fine. But if you don't want to invest in a timesheet program, use a spreadsheet. So cool. All right. Also, what we're going to ask for is don't lump payroll costs. You can see here in this example that for the first quarter, this entity had human number 1 spending 379 hours over the quarter. Okay, you know, it's just that it would be better to see it kind of by the month. So we have confidence that you guys are, that the grantee is recording actual hours. You can see in the second example that they divided it by month, but what they don't have is the number of hours. So again, we don't really know what we're looking at. I have every confidence that this grantee is paying actual costs, but there's no real backup. Courtney, can you move forward? This one is a pretty nice one. Whoop. This one is pretty nice. They've done the hours for the quarter, which is less desirable, but you know, you can see that it does have, you know, the number of hours and the task, so that's nice. Courtney, you can move forward. But the best would be to do something like where you can see a monthly total, a DO, and an SO, and then you can see the hours. And what is even better about this example is that see how nicely the hours go up and down and up and down. I'm assuming that during the winter, when you can't get out and you can't do a lot of the projects, you might spend more hours doing planning and scope of work activities. Whereas in the summer, when you can do things, we're sort of expecting your scope of work hours to go down. I don't look at it a lot, but this is something that I look at this and I'm like, yeah, they are tracking the actual hours worked every month. There's no lumping, there's no, oh, you know, I think it's about this much. It's very nice.
So I'm going to jump in on 2 things. So first, the point here is we know for many of you, your district capacity grant does not cover all of your expenses. And so you're pulling in and piecemealing together the employment of your employees and all the work that you need to do. But what it comes down to is, as we said in the very beginning of this, OWEB can only pay actual expenses. That is what we legally can only pay. And so when you put the same hours every single quarter for a staff person, it gets us concerned that you're not tracking actual stuff. You're just saying, well, we're allocating a quarter of this person's time to this grant constantly forever, but you're not actually tracking and billing us for the actual time that person worked. You know, maybe one quarter it's 100 hours and another quarter it's 300. So you're always billing OWEB for 200 hours for an employee's work. Well, that's not actual, that's estimates, and we do need to be billed actual expenses.
All right. That was a pretty good chunk of time there. Are we still doing good? Are there any questions coming up?
No.
All righty. I don't see any. All right, so we're halfway through. Yay! All right. Just remember that you know, categories are important. A lot of people have been putting audits and bookkeeping in the other category. That's okay, but I just move them over to contracted services because technically that's what they are. Courtney, can you move forward, please? For materials and supplies, you guys have nailed it. I have never had any worries that that category isn't correct. Just remember though that equipment, and there is an equipment category, is items over $2,500, $2,500. I wouldn't think that you guys would be buying a lot of things that are in that category. And we specifically raised that amount so that you guys wouldn't have to be going through the equipment hoops of, you know, for computers and tablets and the other things that we know are, you know, you need to buy in order to keep your office running. So equipment would be something, and I can't imagine that this would be what you would use it on, but like we did have somebody this time, they bought a piece of monitoring equipment that was kind of spendy, and I'm a little surprised they didn't pay for it on an actual grant, you know, one of our grants or somebody else's, but they paid for it in the capacity grant, and they put it in the equipment category. And so far, that's been the only actual equipment cost that I've seen for this biennium.
And I did get a question actually this week from someone, and I'll just reiterate here. OWEB cannot pay for vehicles, ATVs, and things like that with either restoration or capacity grants. So I just wanted to reiterate that since I had that question come across my desk this week. All right, any questions for us on materials and supplies or equipment? All right.
All right. We've alluded to this category, the other category, a couple of times. Just remember that things like rent, utilities, and fees all go in this category. Yesterday, we had somebody say, well, I put rent in contracted services. Fair enough. I wouldn't complain about it. But for the purposes of our own entertainment, we're asking you to use the other category for it. Just because, you know, remember our grants, you know, OWEB's grants were in general built around restoration, and rent is sort of one of those unusual costs that we want to take a look at, and that's why it goes in the other category. All right. Also, I'm begging you, don't make me ask 20 questions. I don't like that game, and I never have. If it's marked bank, we're going to ask questions, okay? So if it says, you know, Squirrel Bank, $20, we're going to ask, well, what is that for? Is it a normal service fee? Is it a returned check charge? Is it, you know, that kind of thing? We cannot pay for fees and bounce checks and things that have to do with mismanagement of money. To avoid questions, just use the memo field. You know, if it's marked bank and it is just a monthly service charge, write monthly service charge. And then we'll see it every month and we'll know, it's no big deal. And Courtney gets this one.
This is my slide. I think it's really important to touch on some of the ineligible expenses. One of the things that it's really, I think it's important to touch base with districts on regularly is that education is no longer an eligible expense. It used to be, and then again, when Measure 76 passed, education became an ineligible expense for OWEB's grant funds. So what that means is outreach to landowners for the purposes of doing future conservation actions is very much eligible. We had a question yesterday, can I do, you know, manure management training with, yes. Can I do, can we do project tours? Yes. We cannot pay for education in schools or outreach activities focused solely on youth. So if you have questions, please reach out to me, Tyra or Sandy. We're happy to answer those, but this is an important thing to emphasize. We also cannot pay for general DEI training of your staff and board members. We can pay for translation of materials. We can pay for targeted stakeholder engagement with underrepresented communities or paying for translation services, but not general DEI training. And then obviously you can't bill expenses to your capacity grant that you're also billing to other OWEB grants. Questions about education or DEI or other ineligible expenses? Okay. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you, Misty, for me not saying something more clearly. All right, on to you, Tara.
All righty. We had a question. It always makes me so excited when we get questions.
These are listening. They're not just listening. Unmuted.
So tip number 8 is regarding travel. We would like to encourage everybody to use a mileage rate. If you're not using a mileage rate, you can charge when things break. But if you're using a mileage rate and then we also start seeing charges such as a lube and tires and windshields, we start going, wait, what's the plan here? It is important to understand what travel can and can't pay for. And this goes back to my plea in the very beginning, please read Go Big. So for example, this entity here, you can see them. I look at that and I say, what's the plan? They're buying fuel and then they're buying some sort of unknown travel expense. And then they're buying tires and lube, and then they have somebody using a personal vehicle mileage rate. I don't understand what the plan is. It's like, Courtney, can you move forward? It's like at one point they're saying, oh, let's buy some gasoline. And then 10 miles down the road, they decide to convert to having a mileage rate. And then in another 10 miles, they need an oil change. And so they decide to do that. And then 10 miles after that, they decide to go to a mileage rate. It's just confusing. It's really not the way it's supposed to work. We would encourage you to pick a method and stick to it. Food. Lately, this has become a hot topic. For questions. We would encourage you again to read Go Big. Specifically, you would want to read the travel section on pages 10 to 11 and the other category on page 12. They have pretty specific examples. And also the videos on travel. There's one called, I think there's one called Travel Tips, and there's another one that says travel expenses. The travel expenses one talks more about how to do a log, but the travel tips talks a lot about food and when it is and isn't allowed. So again, they're pretty short. It might be worth your time if you're feeling confused on this issue. So talking about food, board meetings. This is a reimbursable expense. OEB can reimburse you, but you must have a sign-in sheet and agenda, okay? So, you know, if you're not keeping track of who's there, I would encourage you to start doing that. Next, outreach meetings. So, you know, you're putting on a manure management seminar and you feel like having brownies there would be a cool thing. Yes, OEB can reimburse you for those brownies, but again, you must have a sign-in sheet and an agenda. However, if you're going out to have coffee with a landowner to discuss, you know, an upcoming project, OEB unfortunately cannot reimburse that. We know that it is a real expense and it's part of the job, but the rules say that we can't reimburse you for that kind of thing. When you have a staff meeting, OEB cannot reimburse you for purchases, like if you want to provide brownies to your staff. Unfortunately, we just can't reimburse that as an expense. And finally, I know a lot of you guys work long hours, but unless you're doing overnight travel, OEB cannot reimburse you for day travel expenses, like meals. So we had someone who said, you know, I got up real early, I did work, and then I went to the board meeting, and then I came home and it was a long day for me and everybody else was having dinner and I needed to be reimbursed. Fair enough. However, OEB cannot reimburse you for that expense. All right, we're on to our last tip. Woohoo.
Any questions on travel or meetings? Okay.
In the past, there has been apparently a procedure where, you know, once a quarter you would turn in your SOW expenses, and then once a year you would turn in your DO expenses. That is no longer necessary. Consider pulling a report that shows both of it for every quarter.
Wait, but Tara, I'm going to jump in. It is okay. That's what you guys are all currently doing. It is okay to do that, but you can report more frequently if you would like, and we would like it.
I'm sorry, I said that in a confusing manner. So what Courtney said. Courtney, move forward, please.
Maybe you. There we are.
All right, and if you have any questions, I put on this amusing slide of an orangutan talking to otters. I don't know which one represents me, but I thought it was funny. I think all three of us, myself, Sandy, and Courtney, we do answer the phone. We're relatively sane. You know, we answer emails. So, you know, it's just ask the question. We'll totally get back to you. All right. I did even better than I did yesterday. Yesterday it took me 45 minutes, and today I took 40. So you guys have to come up with 5 minutes of questions, so any new people don't feel shortchanged by not getting as much presentation.
No technology issues today, so.
Oh, that's right. Well, you did miss the technology issues from yesterday then.
But I want to thank everyone for all your hard work, and we are here and happy to help you at any time. Read the Go Big document, watch the videos, and I hear it's a sunny day out. I'm working in my basement. I haven't been out today, so everyone, like, use your extra 20 minutes to go outside and enjoy the sunshine if it's sunny where you are. So.
All right. Well, thank you, both of you. Since it looks like there's no questions, we will just end the session nice and early, and I'm going to go outside. I see sun. All right.
Yeah. All
Take
right.
care,
Take
everyone.
care, everyone.